Jupiter. We got Jupiter in the house, Jupiter in Taurus, and we have Uranus in Taurus. Now, these did not just get here. However, they are doing something that is considered to be the most auspicious conjunction event of 2024, and it is happening in April. So, this video, we will do a deep dive on the Jupiter conjunct Uranus in Taurus. Expansiveness. We always say Jupiter adds to things. It's the go big or go home energy. Jupiter is all about being, I don't want to say the showman, but it's like if it's going to do it, it's going to go like over the top, right? And Jupiter wants it to just be done in a really big way. So many times when you meet people with Jupiter energy, you may, like I remember a friend of mine, and there was a couple people I can think of actually who reminded me of this once I got to know them, and I kind of, anyway, with my brain in the astrology, that's how it does, right? So I remember him, he already had a home, right? And he was always working on fixing something in the home or whatever. Really, really fun person, really great guy. And so anyway, he was doing some particular work because he was very, very handy. I mean, like he was ripping down walls and rewiring and shit. And that wasn't like his 9 to 5 job. Like this is just what he would do because he was someone who would like to work on projects and get involved in things, but he was really trying to acquire security. He was trying to acquire Cancer energy, stability in the home. So he said, okay, I'm going to buy this other house, right? And he wanted it to be bigger. So he bought a bigger home and he wanted it to be better. So it had like an in the ground pool, right? But it was a kind of a fixer upper, you know? So he bought this job he bought this house knowing going in, he was going to have to tear down the walls because all the electrical needed to be redone. Things were outdated. And he knew there was just going to be a lot of nitty gritty, detailed stuff to do. And I'm sure he got a great price, you know. This was some years back, by the way. This wasn't recent by any means. Anyhow, he got it. He started doing the job, and we were talking. And in the talking, he was like, he didn't say I bit off more than I could chew, but he felt like it because he was like, I'm doing this all by myself. And I'm thinking, yeah, you bought it all by yourself. Like this was this was what you wanted to do, like this was your dream, your vision. This was you trying to just get more of something, right? And like I said, he already had his own home. He already had his own home that he had been living in for at least 10, 15 years and multiple cars and to him it always just seemed like he was always collecting and gathering, and to kind of take this a little bit further to understand the Jupiter energy of expanding and going big, because sometimes we think of Jupiter, expanding and going big, usually with like, I don't know, how do you see it? But many times we just think, it's like a balloon, so it blows up. So sure, if you got Jupiter coming around on your chart and it's going to sit on your ascendant, sure, you could all of a sudden there's like weight gain. Absolutely, it could do that to you, right? Um, that could do it to it if it's sitting on the opposite of the ascendant. Like there's certain angles where it can line up and it can look that way, where you can see it really obviously, where there's an accumulation or something has been added to. It's kind of like compounded interest in a way, where it just like stacks it, right? So it can be that way, and I only mention it like that, compounded interest, because we're thinking Jupiter and Taurus, values, money and banking, Jupiter and Taurus. But to get back to my story with my friend and his other home, he got to the point where he kind of, I think, was depressed. He wasn't saying that, but he would constantly say things like, I am doing this all alone. And I'm thinking, okay, like this is the project you wanted. Like, but I'm sure I was not the only person he was saying these things to. And he would say, I've contacted such and such, my friends and other people, and I've asked people to come out and help. He's like, and they all say they'll help me. He's like, but here I am. I say these are the days I'll be out at the house working on it, and I tell them, don't bother to bring anything. I'm buying the beer, I'm buying the pizza, whatever, right? I'm supplying those things, and of course the tools, right? He's like, but nobody ever shows up. Nobody ever shows up. So finally got down to where he was telling people, okay, I am paying people X amount of dollars per hour to show up. And then people showed up, right? He had to show the money and people showed up. So there's a lot of different Jupiter examples in in that story where he wanted a lot, but he had to spend a lot to get the help he needed, the abundance, the security. And I've never seen this chart, by the way. Like I never talked astrology with this person. This was many years ago, and I knew him. That had nothing to do with astrology, but for some reason he thought I was his therapist. And so we would talk all the time, or I would listen all the time, whether I wanted to or not. I was kind of trapped because I was in a job where I worked with the public, and this was somebody who was like a contractor for the job. And so they would come in like every couple of weeks. And so they kind of have you're kind of like held hostage because here you are doing your duty, working your job, and here's this person like filling your ear. And so they kind of have you in this captured space, so to speak. And in a way, that kind of felt like to me Jupiter on the job, which is it can be expansive and it can throw its weight around. You follow? And in a way, in a really weird way, it was kind of like that. And we think therapy, we think Jupiter being the ancient ruler of Pisces, and so we think psychology, right? And psychotherapy, psychologist, and so it kind of weaves into that because this was for years. Years, and many times I heard stuff, trust me, I heard shit I never wanted to hear. I heard shit that I never asked about. It was like, "I know too much." One of those things like, "Please don't tell me anymore." And I've even anyway, so this was the Jupiter more of the Jupiter theme. It was like I didn't ask for it. It was just he just kept giving and giving and like a faucet that wouldn't turn off. And this isn't to be mean. This is just to give an example of how we can see something. There's just like this constant flow, and it's an exaggeration, but it can also go to an extreme. Jupiter is beliefs. It is religion. It is my philosophy on life. It is my spirituality. We have to look at Jupiter and the definitions for Jupiter in relationship to Sagittarius energy, but also to Pisces energy, because Jupiter in Taurus. So we kind of got to make sure that we're paying attention to all the keywords for the planet Jupiter. And then there's freaking Uranus. Then there's shocks and surprises. Uranian energy, all about surprises, all about I am unconventional. You shouldn't expect this actually, right? It's the expect the unexpected. Expect the unexpected. And so it's in Taurus energy. And again, values, money, banking, and we also think of desires. I didn't mention that when I spoke of Jupiter and Taurus together, but an increase value in our desires, an increase belief about what we value. Whatever that is that we value, and whatever that is that we believe in, an increase in that, and maybe the possibility to go extreme. And when there's Jupiter and then Uranus joins the party, they get together. And we're going to show the chart in a minute so that you can see where they're conjunct. I know I showed this chart many months back already. This is part 2. I showed the chart many months back. It was like my sneak peek, I think I labeled it, just to give people a heads up, like, hey, this is coming, and you might want to look at the degrees, which, by the way, I don't think I gave the degrees yet. It happens exactly like to the minute at 21 degrees. 21 degrees in the sign of Taurus. Okay. But when we get into April, Jupiter's already hitting 17, 18, 19 degrees. Right at the beginning of April. And there's other things there's other things, other aspects, other objects in the sky, celestial bodies like at 19 and 20 degrees. Right. So it's an interesting time where there's a lot of focus on Taurus energy. There's a lot of energy in Taurus. So getting back to Uranus, other than the shocks and the surprise, we think of space. We think of how the first time in many years we just had something land on the moon, an unmanned vehicle, right? An unmanned craft landed on the moon for the first time since, my God, I think they said, when was that? 40 years or something, right? Over 40 years. So it's been a long time. And, or I should say for the United States, we'll label it like that. And we have science, astronomy, astrology, technology, the appliances in your home. We think of inventions. So we think of EV, right? Something that's unconventional, right? Batteries, absolutely. Uranium energy, batteries, and battery storage, uranium energy, and the technology behind that. And going forward, right? And the AI, and there's a lot of new and inventive and unconventional stuff going down, right? Here I'm recording this in February, at the end of February, and there's been rulings rulings within certain states in the US where they were the rulings, Jupiter, judges. I didn't say judges with Jupiter yet, did I? Jupiter is judges. So definitely keep your eyes peeled for judges and rulings and the Supreme Court for sure. And maybe some shocks and surprises there. Like I haven't even looked at the chart yet, but it's just coming in full throttle all of a sudden. This makes a lot of sense though. Um, this makes it just lines up with what's going on. And I can only speak specifically to the US because that's where I'm located. Now, obviously, there can be a lot of things happening where you live in your part of the world. So you could always weave it in. But regardless of where people watch from, they're always saying all eyes are on the US. We are watching the US. Matter of fact, my subscribers from all around the world are just like, what the hell is going on over there? Like, we're highly concerned because the stability slash instability of the United States kind of sets the tone for what happens globally. So that's a concern. Sure. That's a concern. And that makes sense because that's always been the precedent, right? So Uranus energy, Jupiter energy, judgments and rulings, getting back to what I was just talking about, there was a recent ruling in a state, maybe states by now, where um, the in vitro fertilization, right? The IVF, however, whatever the acronym is, it is IVIFV, whatever the acronym is, it for those being declared as well, life in children, babies, basically. So a lot of unconventional stuff. A lot of, can you believe this? This has never been heard before. We've never done this before. We've never been here before. Like that is the year. That all happened after the pandemic, right? After 2020 and the following years, it started this new paradigm of you should expect shit you ain't never experienced before. Like that's just what it is. And that's Uranus energy, folks. So it's in Taurus, it's still in Taurus, and it's gonna stay in Taurus till I believe almost 2027, I believe, maybe 2026. I'll have to double check exactly when that is, but I think either the end of 2026 or going into 2027. So different and new shocks and surprises. Uranus can also be the group energy, who we are as people and our friends, even social causes, humanitarian service. It's serving. It's I am the humanitarian. What can I do to help? And I'm doing this because I'm volunteering. It's huge volunteer energy. It's like I'm breaking free. I'm doing this because there's a need that needs to be served, right? So we think of people also who um like I know when this energy got really big for me in my chart initially, I was into I was really involved a little bit on a more of an organizing level for getting involved in voting and politics and stuff like that, and just getting people to vote and attending rallies and communications to get people more involved, right? So Uranus energy, other than the people and groups and friends and social causes and social groups, it can be like the world stuff, the global systems, right? And we've talked about that many times. But what about other than the global systems and obviously with Uranus and Taurus, the global markets and the global financial markets and the global banking system, right? What about aliens and space, right? Stuff like that. We've heard a lot of things, lots of different things and things that have been, kind of smacked down and ruled out as to being absolutely false, right? I'm thinking of the little aliens, you know, and that's not to make fun of saying, "Hey, that can't possibly exist." It was just the way it was presented proved it was obviously false, right? And so you don't got to be a rocket scientist to figure that out. However, you can hear the opinions of other people who are literally rocket scientists and who can explain to you why the serious science community was like, okay, sure. What people don't remember, I think, is back in the day when I was a kid, and some of you probably remember this too, you would go grocery shopping, right? You go in the grocery store, you're with your mom, you're with, whoever, you got the cart piled up and the lines, right? It'd be the weekend. Everybody would go shopping on the weekend and the lines would be piled up. And I'm sure they still do now, right? Whatever. Um, but in those lines, as you're waiting to get in, there'd be like all the magazines. And I don't know if it's still like this, but the number one thing that I remember being on the aisle, other than the candy, would be like your National Enquirer magazines. Do they still have those? Well, what people don't seem to understand is the internet, the World Wide Web is a digital National Enquirer. And so it's entertainment, it can be funny, it can be shocking, it can be horrific. We don't understand that, yeah, it's just like to get you to grab it and to pick it up and to possibly buy it and purchase it and take it home. And I'm gonna be real with you. I'm gonna be real with you. I found a couple of those sitting on our table. Not all the time, but every once in a while. I think not my mom so much, but every once in a while, my dad would bite and would because sometimes they would have like legitimate. I think this was me as a child speaking now. There might have been pieces of legitimate information buried in them somewhere. There might have been, but of course, for the headlines and the pictures, it was the shock and the awe and the unbelievable shit. So that's all Aquarius stuff. It's information, right? It's information that's going to be touching a group. It's knowledge that a group has access to the internet, the World Wide Web, right? Uranus energy, inventions, right? And that knowledge being at your hand and us just being able to have access to it and now the level of okay, can we discern, right? So what happens? How does that affect when Jupiter touches Uranus? What do you think is going to happen? If Jupiter can expand on something, can take it and just be like, woof, right? And if Uranus energy all by itself is surprises, I got to think about Taurus energy though, right? When we look at Taurus energy, what exactly what does that look like? Like where in this chart, like how can we figure out what to pinpoint for Taurus? So you see, I got these two right here, right there. You see them? Jupiter. Yep. Jupiter's right there. Uranus is right there. So they're sitting there together. They are together and they're in Taurus. So what do you think about Taurus energy? Other than banking, other than money, other than desire and love, right? We know of Taurus in the five senses, but we also know it's an earth sign. Yep. We know it's an earth sign. And in understanding it's an earth sign, we have to ask ourselves, well, what about the earth? Why does, you know, what a, you know, can it be the land itself? Can it be the land or as far as the dirt, the rocks, the water, the soil, the vegetation, the farming, the farmers? Sure, absolutely. I think so. The planet itself, how is the planet doing? And then Jupiter being there. And Some say that Jupiter can also be this really beautiful benevolent energy. It can represent a way in which we are protected and taken care of. But then we also have to consider Uranus. And here's something fascinating about the Uranus energy. If you take a close look at this, look at the symbol of Uranus. I went ahead and highlighted that top part of the symbol. And if you look at that, you can kind of see the sign of Pisces in it, right? And then you got Uranus that has this little circle down here and it kind of goes like that there. But Uranus energy can be that divine energy. It can be that I'm here to do something and to provide something that we didn't think was possible. And at the same time, Jupiter can also provide something, can also go big, can also be the angel wings that wrap around us. If you look in the solar system and the way the planets orbit, Jupiter, when you think of the traditional planets, you think of that cycle, the years, how long they take, right? And so you've got the moon and the sun, and you've got, Mercury, and you've got Venus, and you've got Mars, and you've got Saturn, and you've got Jupiter, right? Or I should say Jupiter and then Saturn, because Saturn moves a little bit slower than Jupiter. But when you look at them, you can pull it up on you can it's on the NASA site. You can actually, I'm not going to do that here, but maybe I'll do it in another video where we can take a look at it. But you can see where Jupiter kind of almost looks like it has this, because of the rings that Jupiter has, right? I know we don't normally think of Jupiter with rings, right? But all the planets have like these circulating particle field surrounding them. I'll put it like that. Or haze or clouds or and even the moons, right? That each planet has. And it's as though Jupiter provides protection for all those faster moving planets. Yeah, it's almost like it does that. So in Taurus energy, and maybe there'll be surprises, and it's supposedly being beneficial because Jupiter is normally labeled as the greater benefic in the planet of the universe. Like of all the planets, it's the greater benefic. So here's a thing. I want you to look for your chart, in your chart right now. By the way, if you don't have your chart, let me know down below so you can get your chart and then you can find some of these things out. The little simple things, you can find them out for yourself, right? You want to know, is Jupiter my greater benefic? Okay. Is it my greater benefic? Because it is not everybody's greater benefic. The two would either, there's a tie, right? It's between Jupiter, but that's Jupiter. And then there's Venus. Okay. So some of us, Venus is the greater benefic in our chart. For some of us, it's Jupiter that's the greater benefic in our chart. Okay. You don't normally have them both. Normally there's literally like a rule as to how you can figure that out. So you find out if your sun is above the horizon or below the horizon. This is the horizon line because this is the ascendant. And that is literally when the sun rises. Make sense? That's like sunrise time right there. So if that's when the sun rises, see in this chart, the sun is above this line, the horizon. And I don't really have a line going all the way across, but you see this arrow, right? Well, let me take that arrow and extend it to the descendant because that's exactly what it does. It goes all the way across to the descendant. Technically, it would go all the way there. So this here, up here, if your sun is above the horizon, it's Jupiter. I'm going to repeat that. If your sun, and that's what the sun looks like in your birth chart, it's that circle with the dot in the middle. In this chart, that sun is in Taurus at 1 degrees and 25 minutes. All right. So if your sun is above the horizon when you were born, and you got to get your chart drawn up to find this out. If your sun is anywhere in the 7th house, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th, that means your sun is above the horizon. That means Jupiter is your greater benefic. If your sun is below the horizon, that means Venus is your greater benefic. I'll repeat that. If the sun is below the horizon, then Venus is your greater benefic. You see? Sun above the horizon, Jupiter. If your sun is in houses 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, below this horizon line, then Venus is your greater benefic. Now, does this mean for you that on this particular, at this time, and I remember, I didn't give you the day, April 20th, 2024, I apologize. April 20th, 2024. Does this mean this can't be beneficial for you? Especially if you have something at the degrees, 21 degrees. Look at this. If you have something at these degrees, then surely you will notice because Uranus and Jupiter will be there. Odds are you're going to notice something before this actual day, though, because at the beginning of April, Uranus was already sitting here, right, at 21 degrees. But Jupiter at the beginning of April is like at 18 degrees. It hits 18 degrees. And look, we have Pandora's box sitting right there. It looks like a can at 20 degrees and 54 minutes. We have Hercules at 15, right? These are slower movers, so they're there. What about White Moon Lilith sitting there at 22? I call her Glenda the Good Witch. White Moon Lilith at 22 degrees in Taurus, normally known as very beneficial. Because there's so much in Taurus, anytime you see a stellium in a sign, so we have Pan, P-A-N, at 1 degrees and 2 minutes in Taurus. The sun, 1 degrees and 25 minutes in Taurus. I think this is part of Sultan's victory at 5 degrees, 53 minutes in Taurus. And then at 15, Hercules, Pandora's box, Jupiter, Uranus, White Moon Lilith, Elgos, fixed star, 26 in Taurus, always there. And of course, Sedna at 29:55. Lots of stuff going on. And when you see the degrees, the 21 degrees, the teaching is, it takes on a spiritual meaning. It usually takes on a feeling of servitude and understanding and acceptance. And this could be a support. It could be monetary support. Maybe there's a law or some legislation that comes across for the earth, for the planet herself. Maybe there's some decisions being made to help with food and maybe with better food, for sure, better food, because we think of Uranus and Jupiter there, but also judgments and rulings that might be shocking and surprising. And we think Supreme Court because it's Uranus conjunct Jupiter in Taurus, our values. So it may have to do with money. It may be based, it's from my mom. Hold on. Call her in a minute. And so there's a whole lot of, that was my alarm, by the way. That wasn't her calling me. If she was calling me, I would answer. I just realized. So people don't, I have multiple alarms per day set to call her. And that was one of them. So the Jupiter meaning can be, it can look a lot of different ways because it's beliefs, it's judgments, unconscious judgments, but it's also, it can be dreamy. It can be idealistic. It can be overly idealistic, Jupiter. It can also be a little bit of fantasy, but it can be higher education, continuing education. I know the current administration just did something really beautiful. There was additional money wiping away debt for those who have college, like, debt, basically, education debt. And there was a really beautiful story that I heard on Beau of the Fifth Column on his channel. There was a widow who husband recently passed. She's in her 90s, so they were both quite old. Um, and unbeknownst to her, what he left, the inheritance, what he left behind for his wife, she had no idea. Like, I guess he took care of all the finances, and so she just didn't know, right? Was never a conversation about it, but turns out, an ass load of money. And he his only wish was to do with it as you see fit. And so guess what she did with that money? Did you guys hear about this story? This reminds me of this because it's a surprise and it's extravagant with Taurus, with money. Yeah, and it can help people. But it's done in a way where it can be lasting. And it is higher education. She went ahead, I forget what school in New York. She gave money to a medical school in New York, which not only is paying for the current graduating class, but will now pay the tuition because that money is then being turned around and invested so that it's like a trust setup for the education at that school for doctors. And so the way it's written, if everything is goes as planned, it's basically free education for those who qualify to the medical study in that school. And this is like for perpetuity. That's the setup. That's the plan. Like, holy shit. What an amazing gift. And that's really interesting because Uranus can be science, can be medicine. So we can think Dr. Energy, right? And Jupiter can also be that doctor energy, the ancient ruler, not just of Saggy, but also Pisces. You guys are always hearing me say, think institutions and hospitals and doctors, right? Somebody who's in charge. So, this mixture of these together, and then the values. This is what someone did with their investment. And it was an investment. I forget what company he invested in. Bo said on the video, I forget what it was, but it was a company that her husband invested in a long time ago when they were teeny tiny, and the investment grew to just it was in the billions. So yeah, with a B. So the widow was like, "Well, shit, I can't take it with me," So that's what she did, right? And so this is a really beautiful example of how that can look. Super, super beautiful. Really exciting to be the beneficiary of that for anybody, any youngsters who are, I don't know, who wanna do good and who wanna serve and who wanna, like, help people heal, especially with modern day medicine. Can we please turn our healthcare around? It needs help. And so to me, it was like a symbol, like, "Oh my god, this is the first sign there's gonna be a change within our healthcare industry." Hopefully, where it's more about not just simply about the drugs, right? It's not simply about, well, I'm a doctor, I'm an MD, so I'm a medical doctor, medicine, right? You get it? But more of, can I be more holistic? Can I be more hands on and understand about the food that goes in the body and the hands on as far as the senses, right? Like, I shouldn't ignore like what the patient's telling me. I have to pay attention to how they, like, there's just some basic common sense shit, right? The down to earth basics of Taurus energy, the healthy planet, healthy food, healthy water, healthy, and like, there's just some basics that get skipped over. Okay. So I find this kind of exciting, actually. I kind of find it really exciting. And what I'm going to do now is something that's a little bit different. We're going to back the chart up just a tad bit. I want you to see some of the quick aspects, and then I'm going to do something different with that. So, hang tight. Don't go nowhere. I want you to just take a gander at this. We've got these at 21. You already know that. But there's a lot going on here. So in the earth signs, I have them drawn up. You see the big trine, you see the big mystic rectangle I've got drawn in there. We still have a big great cross. I'm not going to draw it between the north and the south node. I have arrows at them. They're still at 15. And we know that we have Vega. Excuse me. We know that we have Vega still at 15 because it's a fixed star. We know opposite of Sirius is at 14, another fixed star. So we know that Great Cross is still there. Okay. Cardinal Great Cross. But we still have super supportive Earth energy. And at this time, there's like a nice supportive trine, even though Black Moon freaking Lilith is part of it. So I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, wow, it's Virgo. So it's the details. Black Moon Lilith maybe being hypercritical, showing us things that have to do with the healthcare system. Oh my God, please, yes. Right. But then we also have Juno at 6. We have the moon reaching a critical degree actually on this particular day. Okay. But then we have Sirius over here at 19 in Taurus, Black Moon Lilith at 18. We got Sirius at 19. I said Taurus. Sirius at 19 in Cappy. Food, how we get nurtured. How we get nurtured. Sirius energy. It's in Capricorn, which is government, corporations, and businesses. Okay. So we think of supplies going to people that need it, right? Yeah. You know where I'm going with this. Because what else did I not say about Jupiter? Immigration, foreigners, foreign lands, foreign countries. I didn't mention that, but that's all Jupiter stuff, right? It can be water, it can be on it can be on the land, if by land and by sea kind of thing. Absolutely. Jupiter doing something that's unconventional support through the water because Taurus is food as well, for sure. We think of the vegetation and the animals. And so we see how there can be support for people that need it, even though here in the United States, we feel like, what the hell? We keep sending support far away. What about support for our homeless here, for the people who are here that are starving? I'm right there with you. I understand. In my mind, try to take care of the people that you know, try to take care of the people that you see on the street, try to, as opposed to just handing out cash, buy people some food. Like, we do what we can within our own communities and pray to God that we show up to vote and make sure that we are being active with how the government spends its money. Because if we don't vote, then we don't really have a say in that, do we? And money is Taurus for sure. Now, we also have a sextile. Part of this mystic rectangle is a sextile from Mars at 22 exactly with Uranus. It's Mars in Pisces. So again, it can be doctors, but we also have to remember that Jupiter is the ancient ruler of this. So that's a that's like, So we got Jupiter over here, right? We do. We also got Neptune as the ruler of Pisces, even though Neptune is right there sitting at home in Pisces, right there. But we see we've got this Mars at 22. 22. Yeah. Now, it's a sextile, so we know that absolutely as this day gets closer, even though this is the D-Day, this is the moment when they're like down to the minutes exact, likely days before, maybe for some of you, even the very beginning of April, you're feeling it. But when this Mars got close. So a couple of days before this is April 20th. So we're talking April 17th, April 18th, April 19th, likely feeling something for sure. But when the sun entered Taurus energy, that right there also creates like a new beginning, a new set of values. And the sun is an authority figure. For the US, it could be somebody like Jerome Powell, someone who's head of the Fed, who handles the monetary finances with the interest rates, right? Who handles all that stuff. So there could be some of that going on. But something here is there's an action being taken. It can be someone who is in charge. There's multiple points that show to that. The Mars in Pisces, a public figure, part of a institution. The government can be an institution. Sure, hospitals can too. Military is an institution, right? A government institution. But we've got the sun over here within the money. Okay. So likely something happening where maybe there will be interest rates lowered. That's a possibility. Maybe this is all about Bitcoin at the end of the day, even though Bitcoin by now, that whole thing, that happened at the beginning of the month. I believe Bitcoin did its rollover. Yeah, actually, I think the Bitcoin, I called it a rollover. It's not a freaking rollover. it's when Bitcoin splits. So the supply of Bitcoin drops, meaning there's less supply, which means the value of Bitcoin goes up. Um, yeah, that happens at the beginning of April. And so this could be other things that are digital. So whether it's talk again about a digital dollar, I mean, don't get all worried or overly concerned about things that I mentioned. Sometimes it's, it's just what I hear, and I don't do enough of my own homework into the finances. I do enough to kind of be able to talk about these things to include them in the readings. Okay. But Uranus can also be, because it rules Aquarius, it can also be the global system. So it can be a lot of different things, the justices, the Supreme Court, and the rulings. Yeah, maybe some of that happening. Okay. So, and then inventions, but things that are shocking and surprising, and science might be involved for sure. Because, when it comes to, yeah, the whole in vitro and the frozen babies, and saying that anyway, I'm just sharing what's been currently in the news, and possibly something happening with that. But there's a lot of things with women's rights and women's bodies in general where there can be rulings, Roe versus Wade, like that was rolled back. Yeah, that's a ruling that was basically doesn't isn't a ru- isn't a ruling anymore. It's not something where women can hold on and say, but look, this is a precedent that's gone now. So the Supreme Court and the justices, but we also think of the surprises that can come with that. Foreigners, foreign lands, foreign languages, immigration. Hopefully the United States needs some sort of a plan for immigration. Higher education, religion. So these can be people of the cloth. These can be people of the cloth. Shocks and surprises, Jupiter. We got Sirius at 19, but we also have Venus at 19. And why did I pick out Venus? Venus isn't the only thing at 19. We got Chiron at 20. We got Mercury doing a retrograde. There's a lot happening here, a lot. And there'll be more videos, but this one is specifically to try to focus on Uranus and Jupiter, because Venus rules Taurus. So when we're talking about Taurus energy, we got to say, well, where's Venus at? It's in Aries. Freedom of my body autonomy. And it's Aries energy. So these are ancient civilizations. So it's people who likely don't look like me, right? They're darker color skinned. Absolutely. Right. We think of my identity and how I identify in whatever way that is, and my right to identify the way that I choose to identify. That's like someone saying, I'm a Chicago Bears fan, and me saying, well, I'm a Green Bay Packer fan. Now, I know that's an oversimplified version of it, but do you have a right to identify with that team? Sure, you do. So let me get this straight. You have more rights to identify with a freaking sports team than you do to say to somebody, anybody, this is who I am, this is my name, and this is how I identify. You follow? So we don't have a right to do that, but we have a right to identify with the team. So when we think of the body, Mars rules Aries, and we think of, well, science and medicine, and we think of how we get care for our bodies, especially if it's gender affirming care, right? So there could be some of that mixed into this. There could be, regardless of whatever your beliefs are, because remember, Uranus in Taurus is there to challenge your traditional stuck values. It's there to tell all of us that our values are outdated. And when the lesson in the teaching with Uranus energy, remember, it's the wave in the water and you're on the surfboard. Your job is to just hold on to the damn surfboard. You don't even have to surf, but just hold on with that one arm over and keep your nose and your lips above the water line. Like that's your job. If you can swing a leg up over on that surfboard and lay on it, great. But nobody's asking you to stand on the surfboard. You see? It's saying you better learn to roll with the punches. You better learn to change with the times. You better learn that when change comes, it's time to change. and that's Uranus energy. So at 19 degrees, because we got Venus at 19 and we've got Sirius at 19, they are squaring each other because it's cardinal. It's a cardinal square. This is significant one on one relationships. So this is the courtroom. This is the scales of justice. This is equality. Okay. This can be partnerships as far as marriage partnerships, right? So sometimes we can think, there's a whole lot wrapped into that, insurances, and why does it matter what someone identifies as, and two people of the same gender, can they get married, and do they have rights to be on each other's insurance policies, and why did I go there with insurance? Well, because we've got the sun in Taurus at 1, and opposite of Taurus, you see the sun in Taurus at 1 degrees, but the opposite of Taurus is Scorpio, and what do we still have sitting there? Hygeia, I'm sorry, Humea, who's there to create something new, who's there to say, "Hey, I know it's been rough, and I know we're dying to our old way, but I'm here to say, like, this is the phoenix rising. All is not dead. We're taking these ashes and we're building something out of it." Right? It's Scorpio energy. It doesn't give up. It never dies. It just changes the way it looks. It transforms its physical shape. Like that's Scorpio energy. It keeps on living. You see, you can't kill energy. You can change the form and the shape, but then there will be a rebirth. And it's like, son of a bitch, I thought I killed it. It's still here. That's Scorpio energy. It's still here, damn it. So insurance money, Scorpio energy, there might be something like that part of this. Okay. Venus squaring, nurturing, what I need to feel nurtured and secure, my long term financial stability, Capricorn energy, and Venus, money and finances, right? So we think about those things and we think about insurance with the job and with corporations and businesses. We think about how all of that is affected and how it's the freaking bottom line. And that's why there's a big war on you can't do this, you can't do that, because it's costing somebody who's already got an ass load of money that they don't want to have to spend. You see, it's them trying to protect that bottom line. So with that, I think this is it. Thank you for your time. I appreciate you, and I will see you in the next video. Bye bye.